Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Rustam, and today I am going to record a very important video lecture on the topic of memory and second language learning. So this lecture is being recorded for BS English 6th semester students uh, who are studying at Government Degree College, Havelia. However, as the topic is of quite importance and significance, and it concerns everybody who has got interest in SLA, second language acquisition, so I think this video lecture will be equally important for all level of students. Uh, I was reading a book in SLA. As you can see the title of the book, let me maximize it for you. The title of the book is Understanding Second Language Acquisition. As I am addressing this video tutorial to only BS students, so I'll be adapting my vocabulary and sentence structure, and even the output, knowledge output, as per the level of cognitive level of the BS students. So BS students, as I keep mentioning in the class and my other videos, that actually acquisition and learning, they are two different terms. Okay, Dr. Stephen Krashen has done a lot of research on these two terms, and he differentiates between the two. Acquisition is an unconscious process where you don't have to put a conscious effort to learn a language. Usually acquisition happens when we acquire our mother tongue. Okay, and it's a long discussion, but unconscious learning of a language is known as acquisition. But when we put in effort, okay, we try to consciously acquire a language, and then this acquisition is known as learning. However, in modern day terminology, both these terms, acquisition and learning, are synonymously being used. Okay, now initially we used to hear the term second language learning, but these days it is now quite current that people use second language acquisition. So even new books which are being written in second language research, they are also called as SLA research. Okay, theories in SLA. SLA means second language acquisition. So this is a very important book written by Ortega. Okay, and the edition which I'm using is 2009. What has been discussed in this book? Ortega discusses different factors which affect second language acquisition, and she talks about age, cross-linguistic influences, then linguistic environment in which the learner learns the language. Okay, if the learner is surrounded by a linguistic environment that is rich, so automatically a lot of data will be input data will be available to the learner, so a kind of immersion will happen. And then their important chapter in this book is cognition, and that is memory, thinking processes, what happens inside the brain when we receive reading input or the listening input, how language develops and how memory comes in operation. So it's very important, and today's lecture is based upon this. However, in order to put you in the background so that you can be connected to the important chapter I'm going to discuss today, that is memory, so you should know that what Ortega discusses in this book. Okay, she talks about interlanguage. Okay, this is very important factor. So our second language, if we are learning English as a second language, so it will be influenced by interlanguage phase. Then language aptitude, some people don't have aptitude for language learning. So despite even if we control other variables, but if you don't have language learning aptitude, your language learning rate of second language will be affected. Okay, then motivation also plays important role. Students, learners who are highly motivated and they have kind of craving to learn some language, they will be quick at learning as compared to those who don't have this aptitude. personality. Some people are extrovert, some are introvert. It also, this personality types also plays an important role. Then learning styles, okay. And at the end she mentions interaction, that whether we use target language or L2 in many interactions, okay. Because in interactions you receive modified input, and sometime even you yourself are given provided feedback, okay. Positive evidence that something is happening in your language and you need to correct it. So interactions are of many types, but so these are some of the factors mentioned by Ortega in her book. The title is Understanding Second Language Acquisition. I'm going to scan these pages, and I'll upload these pages into WhatsApp group as well as Google Classroom. So BA students who are part of my group, they can access these pages. Now hope you have got that I'm discussing Ortega's book, and our topic, today's topic, is memory. So what role does memory play in second language acquisition? Now one statement which I have picked from the book is, and it can be called an hypothesis as well, because it is just in the nature of hypothesis. It Ortega quotes quotes an authority and says, people who have better working memory, later on I am going to explain what is working memory. People who have better working memory memory capacities can learn an L2 more efficiently. It means if you have got a good working memory, you will learn a second language, let's say English, efficiently than a person who doesn't have a very good working memory capacity. So what is the working memory capacity, by the way? How much data can it hold, and for how much time can it hold? We are going to discuss in the next slide. Second point which Ortega mentions is that working memory capacity is said to help, okay, is said to help predict learning rate, okay. It predicts learning rate. If someone is known to have a good working memory, because we always interact with people, and sometimes we are wonderstruck to come across a person who has got a very good memory. The person can recall the names, etc. You might have heard Dr. Zakir Naik in India, and even Dr. Ahmed Didat, a comparative religionist. They have a very miraculous memories, and so memory is God gifted, and capacities of memory can be increased, enhanced, but usually it's a case of a kind of blessing by Allah Almighty. Anyhow, so this book says that working memory capacity is said to help learning rate and ultimate levels of attainment in the L2. So how much you get L2 second language, it is going to depend upon working memory capacities. So in this slide I am talking about working memory. So it means that we need to define first memory and then working memory, okay. Let's go to the next page. These are the notes which I just took when I was reading the book. So now what is memory? So memory is defined as the ability to take in information, okay, the ability to take in information, store it and recall it at a later time. So this is called memory. So it means that memory is a mechanism in the brain, okay, which what does it do? Which is information encoding, okay, encoding, then information storage, and then information retrieval, okay. So there is a lot of data in our mind, and whenever we need that data, that is retrieved from the storage, okay, long-term memory, and then we put it into use. So but how did this data get into our memories? Because we just encoded the data, because in order to store the data in our brain, first the data have to be encoded. So encoding, storage and retrieval, this mechanism is known as memory, okay. So memory, if we use the criterion of duration, because sometime memory is known as short term memory, sometimes it is known as sensory memory, sometimes it is known as long term memory. So based upon the criterion of duration, memory is of three types, or it has got three forms. One is sensory memory, second is short term memory, STM, and then we have long term memory. So let's see, let's first talk about sensory memory. Okay, sensory memory, as is evident from the name, okay, senses, we have got five senses. So I'm discussing only language, so I'll be talking usually it's a field of psychology. Okay, psychology, that's why we have a course, an optional course which is usually taught in second semester, known as psychology. It is very important for English language students that they must study this 3 credit hours course, because if they are already grounded in psychology of learning, okay, psychology of learning deals with learning of every type, not only verbal behavior or verbal learning, that is language learning, learning acquisition, rather every type of learning is discussed in psychology, and how brain comes in operation or memory comes in operation. So you need to learn, you need to study that. Okay, now coming to senses. So there are three ways in which we receive data. One is through eyes, second is through ears, and third is through touch. Okay, people who are not sighted, they get information, like people who are not sighted, they run their fingers over a braille system, and this way their touch and senses sense the data, and this data is sent to the mind. That's why sensory memory is of three types. One is iconic memory. Iconic means symbols. Symbols are of many types. So verbal symbol or language symbols are known as iconic symbols, words on the page. Okay, A, B, C, letters of alphabet on the page, or you are listening to sounds. Okay, so one is eyes. So data gets into our mind through eyes. This type of you can say there is a sensory memory in our mind. Let's say if I draw my mind like this, so here we have sensory memory, okay, here we have short term memory, and here we have long term memory. So words or letters of alphabet can fly from a page, and they can get into our eyes and then reach the memory. Okay, so first type of sensory memory is of three types. One is iconic memory, and second one is echoic memory, echo, okay, and that is ears, data coming through ears, and last one is haptic memory, that is touch. We have sensations, sensory receptors from the whole of the body, and this way data gets into our mind through these senses. So and it is very fleeting type of memory, like you are having a picture, you are just looking at a picture, you are listening to some reading passage, you are reading some reading passage. Okay, so it is that just data enters through eyes or ears into your mind, but this sensory memory is data remains in this memory for milliseconds, for a duration of millisecond. That is, it means that it's a reception, it receives the data, okay, and then it transfers the data to short term memory. So data doesn't stay here, data is not manipulated, no process is executed on incoming data, whether the data is in the form of reading, that is iconic data, we are reading something and input is coming through our eyes, or we are listening to something and data is pouring through our ears into this memory, or we are touching something and data coming to this memory through haptic means. So data enters into sensory memory just for briefest period of time, it is called milliseconds. Okay, so this memory we usually do not sorry for interruption, actually I was saying that data doesn't stay in sensory memory. Okay, it is a just reception and transfer. So data is received and transferred to short term memory. Now short term memory, further in short term memory we also have a working memory. Okay, so short term memory is the second step, and again here according to George Miller, we cannot hold more than 7 plus minus 2 bits of information. Maximum we can store 7 digits or 7 bits of information in our memory. It can be plus 2, it can go up to 9, or it can come down to 5. So if the incoming information, particularly incoming data, is more than 9, it is not going to stay in short term memory. That's why while reading we break up reading passages. That is known as chunking. Even a phone number, whenever you want to memorize it, or if you want to make it a part of your memory, you what do? You break it into bits or break it into chunks, like 0345. Let's say it is one chunk. This is my number 0345 960 3918. So we break it into chunks. This way it stays. So chunking is a way to keep the data in the memory. So how much for how long does the data stay in short term memory? Just 2 seconds. Okay, if we want this data to stay in the short term memory for a longer period of time, then we have to rehearse the data in phonological loop. Okay, before I proceed further, let me talk about working memory. So working memory is part of short term memory. Sometimes they both the terms are used synonymously, like we can say working memory or short term memory, STM. But however, according to Alan Baddeley, who is an authority in United Kingdom on memory, he has been conducting case studies and he has been studying memory, Alan Baddeley. So he has given his model of working memory. So you can say working memory is part of short term memory. Okay, and further this memory consists of 3 important chunks, you can say part. One is known as phonological loop. Phonological loop or verbal buffer. Verbal buffer mean language, it deals with language. Okay, and the second one is the central executive. Second part of working memory is central executive, and third part is known as visual spatial sketchpad. Visual spatial sketchpad. So data from sensory memory, if it is iconic data, okay, so it usually that if the information relates to visuals, so it is going to be received by this part. Okay, and if it relates to some auditory data like ears, acoustic data, it is going to be received on phonological loop or phonological part of the short term working memory. And what does this part do? Central executive, it relates, it interacts between these two parts. Okay, so phonological loop and this visual spatial sketchpad, they are coordinated by central executive. Another role of central executive is that it connects working memory with long term memory. Okay, so they, as you can see on the screen, that it seems as if they are different parts of the brain, but they are not different parts of the brain. Rather, in the brain they are quite snuggled together. They are quite closer, they lie quite closer. Okay, so what happens that data regarding auditory information is received by phonological loop and it is processed, but it happens very quickly, because capacity of this short term memory is, as I just mentioned, only 7 plus 2 bits of information. No more than this can be held in this memory. But what about its duration? Even duration is very short, only 2 seconds, and at the most the average duration of data in short term memory is 20 seconds. So after 20 seconds data is going to fade off from the this memory. But even this 20-second data cannot be retained for 20 seconds in this memory, because its duration is only 2 seconds. So how can we retain the data for 20 seconds? Yes, Here comes the notion of phonological loop, an idea propounded by Aaron Bradley. Aaron Bradley says that if you want to retain let's say someone is telling you, dictating you a phone number, okay, and he tells you that note down the number, and you are putting it, sketching it on the pad, like you say, okay, 0345 and 960, and then because while you are writing it, 2 seconds have elapsed, so it is going to be deleted from your memory. So what do? You rehearse it in your phonological loop, and you again say 0345, and while you write you pronounce it 0345, and you continuously keep saying 0345 0345 960 960. When you rehearse it, what happens? The data again enters your working memory, and again it stays there for 3 seconds, and as it is about to fade, you again repeat it and rehearse it, okay, subvocally in your phonological loop, and you sound it, and what happens? It again enters your working memory. This way you can enhance the duration of working memory up to 20 seconds. So after even the person who was dictating you the phone number or other information, so after you can repeat the information again and again. This way the data is going to remain in your short term memory for a little bit longer. However, as a language student, second language students, if you have a very good working memory, and again I said that it is God gifted, or there are neurological processes in which memory can be enhanced, okay, like there are exercises to enhance memory, there are some strategies you can adopt for learning, and you can retain the data. So if working memory capacity, it is just RAM in the computer, so the processing happens here, but for a short while of time, and then data is transferred to long term memory. So as per an hypothesis that people who have got very good working memory capacities, they are efficient in language learning, and those who are deficient in short working memory capacities, their learning rate of a second language is a bit slower as compared to the one who have got good memories. So memory plays very important role in learning or acquiring a second language. So after staying in the short term memory, let's say for 3 to 5 seconds, and then up to certain second, let's say 20 seconds, so the gist, gist or essence, because short term memory, as it does not have much capacity, so it discards, it throws away the lot of information and irrelevant information, so only the gist and essence is transferred into long term memory. This is the third part of your memory. So long term memory. So long term memory is a permanent storage, okay, and if no damage happens to your brain, so this is going to stay. But here again there are variations. Sometimes you try to recall some information, you want to retrieve some information from the depth of your memory, and it doesn't come up to your working memory, it stays there. So it means certain happenings in the outer world may cause damage to our long term memory as well, but usually the data automatically is stored, encoded and stored in the long term memory, and then it is retrieved whenever it is needed, particularly language data. So when you are reading something, so information comes into your short term memory through sensory memory. First it comes to, in the sensory memory, and then it comes to short term memory, okay, here, and then it is compared with the data in your long term memory, because you already have a good deal of data in your long term memory. So incoming data in short term memory is compared with this, and then it is put into certain blocks. If it is let's say explicit memory, because a hard disk or long term memory has further types of memory. One is known as this one just so long term memory has two types of further memory. One is known as explicit memory, okay, and the second one is known as implicit memory. So explicit memory is also called conscious, conscious memory, okay, conscious. And then it is also known as declarative, or as I mentioned here, declarative. So this one, so explicit memory talks about conscious data, and the implicit memory deals with unconscious or non-declarative or procedural data, like motor skills. Let's say you sometime we lace up our shoes, and you just ride a bicycle or a motorbike, and you start doing things automatically. So this information is stored in your implicit memory, and you don't have to make an effort to retrieve this data. This automatically comes up the surface, and you keep doing things, and you never forget that you have to engage a gear, and you have to put your foot on a brake pedal when there is a some time of accident. And so all this automatically happens because this information is stored in your implicit memory, and you don't have to make a conscious effort. But when you want to retrieve data, when you want to recall happenings in your life, okay, factual information, so facts and events in your life, so your explicit memory comes in operation, because you have to make an effort to recall the data. So explicit memory is of two types. One is semantic memory, another one is episodic memory, okay. Semantic memory means the knowledge about language, word knowledge, etc. But episodic memory means the information about past experiences, your experiences of your life. Anyhow, you as a student, be a student, you don't need to go into much detail about this. So you just need to know that memory is a very important factor of second language acquisition. And usually memory has got three types of memory is there. We have three types of memory: sensory memory, short term memory, okay, and long term memory. Then you must remember that sensory memory just receives data, and it transfers the data to short term memory, and data doesn't stay much here. Data just you are walking, and you are watching, let's say, things around you, and when you are watching, data is coming through your eyes, okay, and getting into your brain. And if you are listening to something, then data is coming into your mind through equic means ears. So this provides only a passage. That's why it is known as sensory memory. But it is necessary, because if sensory memory is not there, so we can't access the short term memory. So after sensory memory, which you can say there is a very it's very fleeting type of memory. Milliseconds happens, and then new data comes in. So this data comes into the actual memory is known as short term memory or working memory. This really works. And if there were no short term memory or working memory, so long term memory can't receive data. So much operation happens in short term memory. And this memory is also known as working memory. But some SLA researcher use the term synonymously. They say sometimes they say short term memory, and sometimes they say working memory. But actually working memory is part of short term memory, and it has got further three parts, as you can see: phonological loop or verbal buffer, then central executive, and visual spatial sketchpad. So this phonological loop is very important as far as language learning is concerned, okay. It plays much important part in language learning. Particularly it helps if we want to enhance the short term memory duration. So what do? We rehearse the incoming data in phonological loop, and this rehearsing, this repetition again enters into short-term memory, and this way the information stays here for a longer period of time. Otherwise, short-term memory's duration is only 2 to 3 seconds. So we can extend it up to 20 seconds by chunking the information. While reading, we need to use the chunking strategy. We need to divide the information into different chunks. This way data can be put into short-term memory, or we can repeat it again and again in phonological loop, and this way we can enhance the duration of the short-term memory. We can't increase the capacity. So in order to increase capacity, what do? We chunk the information, and in order to increase the duration of time, what do? We just rehearse the data in phonological loop. Okay, so after this the data enters into long-term memory, and we don't need to further go study the different types of memory. Anyhow, so I'm going to end this video lecture because I'm going to share the pages from the book with the students, and students can read these pages. And I just wanted to introduce the topic, and inshallah we will be I will be sharing few videos as well which are on the nature of memory. So out of different factors which work in second language acquisition, so this one is very important factor known as memory. So other factors which can affect foreign language acquisition or foreign language learning are the age factor, then interlanguage, motivation, personality, learning styles, needs of the learners, etc. So hope you have got an idea. So I'm going to share these pages from the book of Ortega. The name of the book is Understanding Second Language Acquisition. Thank you very much.